Hi, I'm Venna. My family once told me, no one missed you last year. So this year, I brought flowers, wore a smile, and handed over a gift bag I spent weeks preparing, only to be asked to take out the trash. They smiled for pictures while calling me the bank account that walks. They cut me out of photos, then out of the trust. Quietly, legally. I didn't scream. I didn't slam doors. I just canceled the florist, locked the bank, and walked out. Again. But what happens when the child they erased refuses to disappear? When the receipts speak louder than the family toast? They tried to bury me in silence. But have you ever watched silence fight back? It was the kind of message you don't delete. Not because it's important, but because you know you'll need to reread it later to confirm you weren't imagining the insult. A forwarded email, no greeting, no context, just a subject line. Mom and Dad's 35th. Hope you can make it. Sent not by either of my parents, but by one of my mom's longtime church friends who occasionally texts me holiday Bible quotes out of guilt or habit. I stared at the screen for a long time before opening the message. A digital flyer attached. Time, location, dress code. It felt more like an event notice for a Rotary Club potluck than a family celebration. No personal note. No acknowledgement that last year I hadn't been invited. No apology. Just an assumption. You'll be there. I told myself maybe they were trying, in their own warped way. Maybe this was progress. But deep down, I knew. It wasn't an invitation. It was a press release. I was being informed. Not included. Scrolling through the family group chat that night, I didn't find a single message referencing the event. Just vacation photos from Zinnia's recent trip to Cabo, a forwarded meme about modern kids being too sensitive, and a picture of my father's dog wearing a birthday hat. Then, suddenly, a new message popped up from my mother. Let's just hope no one causes a scene this year. No name, no context. But everyone in that chat knew who she meant, and they said nothing. No one replied. Not to ask who she was talking about, not to change the subject, just silence. I stared at the screen, half waiting for someone, anyone, to step in. But silence, I've learned, is just another kind of vote. When people say nothing, they're saying enough. I put the phone down and stood by the window, watching the neighbor's sprinkler rotate across their lawn. It was oddly soothing, more genuine than anything in that thread. My chest tightened, not from anger, but from that familiar ache of being unwanted. Why go? Why walk back into a house where your presence is tolerated like a utility bill, necessary but never celebrated? Last year, I hadn't shown up. I told myself I was busy, that work got in the way. But the truth? I was tired of begging for belonging, and not one person followed up. No call, no message, no, where were you? The worst part isn't being forgotten. It's realizing your absence doesn't even register. It's learning that silence isn't just quiet, it's a verdict. A few days passed, and I tried to shake it off. I buried myself in work, ignored the group thread, convinced myself I was being dramatic. But then, my cousin Katie sent me a photo. Look what they're using for the event banner, she wrote. It was a family photo taken at my parents' 30th anniversary. Everyone was in it. Parents, siblings, grandkids, uncles, even that second cousin who only appears for free food. Everyone, except me. No, that's not right. I was in the original photo. I remembered because I'd stood awkwardly at the end of the row, 1 foot half off the pavement, trying to smile while Zinnia fixed her hair in the reflection of her wine glass. But in this version of the photo, cropped, clean, seamless, like I'd never been there, like I wasn't part of the family at all. That wasn't a mistake, I whispered. That was the message. I stared at the image until my hand went numb holding the phone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, trying to decide whether erasure was worse than rejection. And still, I booked a hotel. I ordered custom flowers from a local florist, white orchids and soft blue delphiniums, arranged in a hand-cut crystal vase. The card said, "Congratulations on 35 years of marriage. Wishing you continued grace. It cost me $312.45, not including the hand delivery fee. And no, it wasn't about the money. It was about effort, about saying, I'm still here, even when no one asked if I would be. Maybe that's a kind of grace, or maybe it's desperation dressed in good manners. But I needed to show up, if not for them, then for the version of me that still believed there was a seat for me somewhere in that house. That night, I messaged Evan. "You'll be there, right?" I typed. He replied almost instantly. "Wouldn't miss it, but be ready." I parked 3 houses down. Not because I needed the space, but because walking in from a distance gave me time to breathe. To rehearse. Just smile, say hello, compliment the flowers, avoid the kitchen for the first 15 minutes. I'd learned over the years that if I looked too eager, it made them suspicious. If I looked too guarded, they'd say I was being dramatic. There was no safe position, only a series of defensive maneuvers. So I straightened the hem of my dress, repositioned the gift bag in one hand and the floral arrangement in the other, and walked toward the house like I belonged there. The front door was cracked open, a quiet signal that guests were arriving. I knocked anyway, old habit, and pushed the door gently. Inside, the air was thick with cinnamon candles and overcooked ham. Voices echoed from the backyard, glasses clinked, laughter flared, then fell flat. I stepped through the hallway, past the dining room, and into the kitchen. My father was standing by the fridge, sipping from a plastic tumbler. My mother was at the counter, slicing carrots with her back to me. The knife hit the cutting board with a rhythmic tap, tap, tap. I smiled. "Hi, Dad. Hi, Mom." My father looked up, gave me a once-over. His lips curved, not quite a smile. "Didn't think you'd bother showing up," he said. "No one missed you last year." My feet rooted into the tile floor. My mother didn't turn around. She kept slicing, not a pause, not a flinch. And there it was, the jab. The invitation may have been an afterthought, but the insult? That was intentional, delivered with the precision of someone who'd been waiting to say it. I didn't respond right away. I gave myself a breath. Maybe two. Then I set the gift bag on the counter, adjusted the flowers in my hand like they weren't suddenly too heavy. "Well, I didn't want anyone to panic," I said lightly. "Thought I'd keep things consistent." He chuckled once, low. "Sure, just keep your voice down this time. No scenes." My mother reached for another carrot. I moved into the living room, where the hum of conversation grew louder. Guests had begun arriving in clumps, spreading through the house like a fog. Some nodded politely. A few gave me the tight-lipped smile people reserve for acquaintances they once heard rumors about. I scanned the room for Evan, but didn't see him. Maybe he was outside. "Venna!" My mother called from the kitchen doorway. I turned. She held out a folded black apron. "Could you help pour drinks? There's no name tag, so just keep it simple." I blinked. "I'm sorry?" "We're short-handed," she said. "And you're good with people." That wasn't an answer. That was a script. I looked down at my outfit, a fitted dress, soft heels, lipstick I'd reapplied in the car, and back at the apron. She handed it to me like it was expected. Like I was the help. A woman I didn't recognize walked past, glanced at the apron in my hands, and said, "Didn't know you were helping out this year. Thought you were out of town." I didn't correct her. I just nodded and moved toward the kitchen, hiding my clenched jaw behind a neutral expression. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a narrative. I tied the apron behind my back, stepped behind the drink table, and began pouring sweet tea into plastic cups. My nails, freshly done, clicked against the rim of the pitcher. People smiled, said thank you, moved on. No one asked why I, one of the adult children, was standing behind the table instead of being introduced or toasted or acknowledged. "Can you make sure the ice doesn't run out?" my mother said, passing me again. "Sure," I replied. "Wouldn't want anyone sweating." 30 minutes later, I slipped into the hallway, untying the apron. My hands were sticky with condensation, My lipstick had faded. I stood by the staircase, out of sight, and pressed my fingers against my temples. I wasn't going to cry. I hadn't come here to cry. I whispered the line to myself like a prayer. Never let them see you bleed. Then I said it again, this time louder. Maya Angelou's voice echoed in my head, something I read once, years ago. I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. I exhaled. Then I saw her, Zinnia, in a powder blue dress, laughing as Isolde handed her a wineglass with both hands. The way you'd serve royalty. And then my mother turned to me and said, almost sweetly, like she was doing me a favor, "Don't wander off. There's trash to take out later." I stepped outside under the excuse of needing something from my car, though we both know it wasn't true. The air hit me like a bucket of water. Texas heat mixed with the artificial coolness of too many SUVs running their ACs on idle. I leaned against the driver's side door and stared down the length of the street, blinking into the sun, trying to settle the storm gathering behind my eyes. I guess being family means you don't get to sit, I muttered under my breath. You just serve. My fingers brushed against the side mirror. I wasn't even sweating, but I felt clammy. I inhaled, long and slow, then let it out through my nose, the way my therapist had once taught me. Counting backward from 5 didn't make me any less furious, but it stopped me from hurling the apron across the driveway. I thought of my 30th birthday. No card, no call, no text. I'd told myself they must have forgotten, but now I saw it for what it was. An active decision. My absence hadn't hurt them. My presence today wasn't valued. It was expected. I opened the back seat and glanced at the gift bag and flowers still waiting. Maybe I should have just left them at the front door and driven away. But no, I had carried them in with both hands, as if those things had weight beyond their physical mass. The bag was now tucked in a corner of the kitchen counter, wedged between napkin holders and unopened plasticware. The flowers, white orchids and pale blue delphiniums, had been set beside the trash can, still wrapped in the florist's ribbon. No card, no water, just sitting there like an afterthought. Inside, I could still hear the swell of laughter from the backyard. Clinking glassware, some old country song playing off a Bluetooth speaker. I stepped closer to the window and saw my mom with her arm looped through Zinnia's, walking from one guest to another, beaming. A woman near the patio picked up the flower arrangement and said, "Isolde always has such great taste in centerpieces." No one corrected her. Not even a passing mention that I had brought them. That I'd spent an hour customizing the order, choosing colors my mother once told me reminded her of her wedding bouquet. Nothing. So they're not just ignoring me, I whispered. They're rewriting me. I walked back toward the hallway and stopped short near the stairs, where the light from the window pooled in patches across the floor. I stood there, listening to the faint hum of celebration I wasn't part of. On impulse, I climbed the stairs, headed for the guest bathroom. I needed to regroup, wash my hands, fix my face, maybe talk myself out of leaving altogether. But halfway down the hall, I noticed the linen closet door ajar. A box was half visible beneath a stack of table runners labeled "Party Favors." I wouldn't have looked. I really wouldn't have. Except I saw a flash of the same pink and gold wrapping paper I'd used for Mom's gift last year. It wasn't a generic pattern. I'd bought it special from a small shop in Austin, the kind that cost more than it should have. I stepped closer, opened the box gently, and pulled the package out. There it was, still wrapped. But the tag, my name had been scratched out in black ink. Over it, a white sticker said, "From a friend." My throat tightened. Not from shock. From confirmation. They hadn't just dismissed my effort. They'd repurposed it, repackaged it, detached me from it entirely. It wasn't just ignored, I said, almost laughing. It was erased. I sat down on the top step, holding the box in my lap like something sacred and defiled all at once. I didn't cry. There were no tears left for this kind of thing. Only that slow burn. the kind that makes your ribs feel like they're housing something heavy and volcanic. I took out my phone and texted Evan. Remind me why I came here again? He replied a few minutes later. Because you hoped it would be different. That's not weakness. That's loyalty. Loyalty. I stared at that word, let it sink in. People like my mother wield loyalty like a weapon. They demand it, they exploit it. But they never return it. I nodded, just to myself, and stood. Something in me had shifted. Not rage, not yet. Just resolve. A quiet realization that the line had been crossed, and this time, I wouldn't pretend not to see it. I walked back down the stairs, step by step, careful not to make a sound. The hallway was empty when I reached the bottom. From the kitchen, I heard the sound of a wine cork popping and Zinnia's laugh, sharp, rehearsed, the kind that made my skin itch. Isolde rounded the corner, holding a tray of cupcakes. Everything okay? She asked, feigning concern. I smiled, polite and hollow. Yeah, I said. I just realized I forgot something. By the time I made it back to the backyard, the crowd had tripled. Folding chairs lined the grass in uneven rows. The air buzzed with soft music, laughter, and that unbearable high-pitched clinking of champagne glasses. Someone had arranged a small stage near the back fence, complete with a mic stand and a 35-year-strong banner strung from tree to tree. I stood to the side, out of the way, half watching and half waiting for Evan to arrive. My phone buzzed once, then again. Text after text, from people saying they were so excited to see me. Funny how none of them had said that to my face. Then came the voice I knew too well. Smooth, rehearsed, slightly amplified. Can we have everyone's attention for a few minutes? Isolde stood at the mic, holding a glass of white wine. The crowd quieted. My father joined her on the stage, beaming. We just want to thank you all for being here, she began. 35 years. It doesn't happen without love. Or support. The guests clapped politely. I folded my arms, sipping my warm iced tea from a flimsy plastic cup. And one of the people who made today possible, who held everything together behind the scenes, is someone who never asks for credit. I knew that line. She turned slightly and waved at Zinnia. Zinnia, come up here, sweetheart. Zinnia stepped onto the stage like she belonged there. Hair perfect, posture straight, smile camera ready. We couldn't have pulled this off without Zinnia, Isolde said, placing a hand over her heart. Every detail, flawless. Every vendor, every flower arrangement, every gift bag. She coordinated it all. The crowd clapped again. Louder this time. I didn't move. I didn't blink. The bouquet I had brought, the one I spent hours curating, still sat untouched near the punch bowl. The card I wrote nowhere in sight. From somewhere to my left, a voice said, Zinnia even paid for the floral arrangements, I heard. Such a heart. I turned my head slowly and stared at the woman who said it. She wasn't being cruel, just misinformed. And no one corrected her. Not Isolde. Not Zinnia. Not anyone who knew better. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to Evan. It's not just exclusion, it's theft. He replied almost instantly. I'm 5 minutes out. Don't kill anyone. I looked up at the stage again. Zinnia had slipped her arm through our father's and was laughing at something he whispered. Her eyes scanned the crowd, skipping right over me. And then came the kicker. We also have a special gift, Isolde said. A framed photo of our first Christmas together, restored and printed on reclaimed wood. From Zinnia and the girls. She held it up. I saw it before anyone else did. The grainy photo, once faded and cracked, now printed beautifully on smooth wood. I recognized the quote etched at the bottom. The people who stand beside you in the quiet are louder than those who only show up to cheer. I'd picked it. I'd sent it to a designer friend 3 months ago. I paid for the rush shipping, the extra engraving. I'd wrapped it in recycled linen ribbon and added a tag. From Vienna. Because history matters. Now the tag read, From Zinnia and the girls. No one looked at me. No one even glanced. The applause grew louder, and something in me, something that had tried so hard to stay soft, hardened. They're using what I gave to build someone else's crown, I whispered. I set my cup down, walked toward the side gate. I didn't leave. I just needed a breath, a reset. My chest was too tight to stand still. Near the fence line, beneath the string lights, I stood and stared at the manicured hedges. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Eleanor Roosevelt's voice in my head, as steady as ever. I didn't have to scream. I didn't have to call them out. That's what they wanted. Drama, emotion, a reason to call me unstable. I just had to subtract myself. Quietly, deliberately. I opened the Florist app on my phone and pulled up the order set to deliver tomorrow morning. Another arrangement. Bigger, more expensive. A final olive branch in glass and petals. I tapped cancel. A pop-up asked, "Are you sure?" I tapped yes. The dessert table was crowded with dollar store cupcakes and a Costco sheet cake that said, "To love, 35 years strong," in smudged blue icing. No one looked up when I passed it. Not one person turned their head. I could have vanished into the carpet, and it would have taken them hours to notice. You can only be invisible for so long before you disappear on purpose, I whispered to myself. I stepped out of the line of traffic between the kitchen and the backyard, pulled out my phone, and opened the Florist app. The screen lit up with tomorrow's scheduled delivery. A second arrangement, ordered weeks ago. White orchids, navy lilies. A glass vase I chose because it reminded me of one my mother used to keep on the mantel. The tag I wrote said, "You still matter to me." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I tapped cancel. The app asked, "Are you sure?" I pressed yes. It wasn't rage. It wasn't pettiness. It was clarity. Some things don't deserve to be received if they're not even seen. As I tucked my phone away, I caught a voice from the hallway near the coat closet. It was Jared, my cousin on my dad's side. The one who posts about crypto on Facebook and calls himself an entrepreneur because he bought a food truck. "Well, at least she always pays up on time," he laughed. "She's more of a bank than a sister." Laughter. Then another voice. His younger brother, Mark. "Yeah, and I bet she doesn't even know they use her name on half the bills. Internet, Zinnia's rent. That joint account was the smartest thing Mom ever convinced her to set up." I didn't move. I didn't cough to announce myself. I just stood there, letting the words soak in like oil on linen. It wasn't a joke. It was a confession. I walked to the back patio. The sun had started to drop, casting the yard in soft gold and long shadows. Children were blowing bubbles near the fence. An old neighbor was telling someone about his upcoming retirement. Someone else laughed too loudly at a joke that wasn't funny. I sat on the patio edge and opened my banking app. 2 years ago, I'd created a shared account under the guise of family emergencies. It started as a way to cover groceries when my father was between contracts. Then, it paid for Zinnia's college textbooks. Then, the Wi-Fi. Then, their streaming subscriptions. And I never asked for thanks, because I thought love meant quiet sacrifice. Not anymore. I navigated to the user settings and found the access permissions. Remove secondary access? I hesitated for only a second. Then tapped yes. A confirmation screen appeared. Access removed successfully. I stared at the message, then at the backyard. At the way my mother clutched Zinnia's elbow as if she were the one holding it all together. At the way no one was looking for me, even now. I pulled out my phone one more time and texted Evan. "It started." He replied, "They'll notice within the hour." I tilted my head toward the darkening sky and whispered to myself, "Good. Let them." It started just as Evan said it would. Within the hour. I hadn't even made it to the driveway when the first buzz hit my phone. Then another. Then a rapid fire of vibrations that turned the device into something alive in my palm. Group chat lit up like a forest fire. Did something happen? "Mom's freaking out. What's going on?" Did you really cancel the account? I didn't respond. I didn't open any messages. I just watched them stack like bricks in a wall they'd built for themselves. Let them sit in the confusion they created. I kept walking toward my car, not in a rush, not trying to hide. I wasn't ashamed. I was done. Just as I reached the passenger door to grab my purse, my phone lit up with a new notification. Isolde. Not a call, a message. She never called when she wanted to be careful. This is petty. You embarrassed us after all we've done for you. I stared at the screen. After all we've done for you. I took a screenshot. Then another, when a second message followed. I hope you're proud of yourself. People are talking. As if that was ever new. Then came the voicemail. My father. His voice wavered, not with sadness, but with rage. That tight tone he used when a deal didn't go his way, when someone told him no for the first time in a long time. You think this is about money? He hissed. You think we needed your charity? You think we're leeches? I listened all the way through. Then again. Not because I needed clarity, but because I needed to remember the moment I stopped giving them excuses. You did need it, I whispered to myself. You just pretended you didn't. As I climbed into the car and shut the door, I tapped the screen to check my email. A new message had landed in my inbox. The subject line made my stomach clench. Payment failure, Unit 206B rent. It was from a leasing office in another city, the apartment where Zinnia lived. I hadn't thought about that lease in months. The one I'd co-signed back when she called me crying that Mom said she'd need to figure it out. I stepped in, paid 3 months up front, set up autopay from the joint account to make sure she wouldn't be out on the street. Now that account was frozen. Evan sent me a text seconds later. Landlord's trying to contact you. Looks like she never told them to update billing. They still think you're responsible. I stared at the screen. My jaw clenched so tight I felt it in my temples. No thank you, no heads up, no apology. They built her image on my silence and my money. I opened another app, one I rarely touched unless something was deeply wrong. I began reviewing every connected account, insurance policies, phone bills, a shared Hulu subscription, even Zelle links that still had me listed as emergency contact. Click, click, disable, remove, revoke. I added two-factor authentication to everything, changed passwords, locked down access. I texted Evan. They're going to spin this. Watch for lies. He replied fast. Already on it. Got a folder started. Let them run their mouths. As I sat in the car, letting the silence settle around me, the sun started to lower. The house behind me bustled with the sound of party cleanup. Silverware clattering, chairs scraping on pavement, laughter that sounded just a bit too forced now. Another ping on my phone. A family friend I hadn't spoken to in months. Her name popped up on the screen like a relic from a different life. Hey, I'm hearing all kinds of stuff. You okay? I stared at it for a beat, then typed back, define okay. She responded quickly. They're saying you emptied their savings. You might want to get ahead of this. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because right then I understood something deep and permanent. They weren't going to tell the truth. They were going to tell the story that hurt me the most while protecting them the best. By the time I made it home, the sun was gone, and the night felt heavier than usual. I tossed my keys onto the counter, kicked off my shoes, and didn't bother turning on the lights. My apartment had become my sanctuary over the years. Quiet, consistent, and mine. It didn't talk back. It didn't gaslight me. It didn't change the narrative. But my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The family group chat was chaos. Screenshots rolled in from extended relatives and old friends alike. Messages forwarded, snippets of calls, pieces of the news story forming faster than I could scroll. She shut off the funds in a rage. Said we weren't worth it. Left her mother in tears. It didn't matter that none of it was true. It mattered that it spread. I opened a fresh folder on my desktop and named it exactly what it was. Receipts. I started dragging files in. Screenshots, voicemails, bank statements, text logs. I wasn't going to argue in group threads or make a speech at the dinner table. I was going to keep records. Quiet power doesn't shout, it archives. A voicemail notification popped up. Isolde. I played it once, then again. Her voice, breathy and calm, with that practiced edge of martyrdom. "I don't know why you're choosing war," she said. "We've only ever tried to love you the best we could." War. Choosing this. Love. 3 words, none of them true. That wasn't love. That was guilt in a gown, holding a wine glass, performing virtue. Evan's name lit up on my screen. "She just called Aunt Merrill," he texted. "Told her you screamed at her, that you threatened to sue, that you embarrassed them in front of all their friends." "Let them talk," I replied. "I'll document." Then the next bomb dropped. A call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, the transcript showed up on my screen. "Venna, it's Miss Clara from Piano. I was told you've been struggling mentally, that you've isolated yourself and cut ties with the whole family. I don't want to overstep, sweetheart, but I'm here if you need to talk." I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, blinking at the ceiling. This wasn't just about money. They were planting seeds, rewriting the reason, making it sound like I was spiraling, unstable, alone. Because if they made me look broken, everything I said would sound like bitterness. And if I tried to defend myself, I'd only prove their point. I stood, walked into the kitchen, poured a glass of water. My hand didn't shake. That was important. I opened my laptop and drafted my first email to Evan. Attached, a timeline of payments, screenshots from the joint account, a scan of the lease I signed for Zinnia 2 years ago, messages from my father asking for help, never saying thank you, voice clips, dates, amounts. The subject line, "Not crazy, just done." Evan replied within minutes. "You're not crazy," he wrote. "You're the only one with a record." That night, as I sat on my couch with my laptop warming my legs, Zinnia posted a vague Facebook status. "Sometimes family is the biggest disappointment." Dozens of likes. A stream of comments from people who didn't know better, or didn't want to. "Stay strong, girl. Family's not always blood. You deserve better." I stared at the post for a long time, then whispered to myself, "Fine, let's play with receipts." By the next morning, my inbox looked like a press office. Forwarded screenshots, voicemails, tags I wasn't supposed to see. There was no mistaking it now. Isolde and Zinnia had gone full campaign mode. Only this time, I wasn't the one writing the narrative. They were. She shut off the funds in a rage. She threatened her mother in front of everyone. She's always had mental health issues. That's what this is really about. No lie was too low. No detail too twisted. I opened my laptop and created a folder. I called it exactly what it was. Receipts. Inside, I started organizing everything. Text chains, voice memos, screenshots of transactions, old emails with bank approvals, and confirmation numbers. All of it. Not just to defend myself, but because the next time someone asked, "Are you sure?" I wanted to be able to say, "Let me show you." Evan sent me a voice message at 8:42 a.m. "I debated sending this," he started, "but you should hear it." It was a recording he'd made before the anniversary party. In it, Isolde's voice came through clearly, laughing softly. "If she shows up, just smile. She thrives on drama. We didn't really invite her. We included her." That word hit harder than any insult she could have slung to my face. Included. Like I was a footnote, a technicality. I closed my eyes, not from sadness, but because the truth settled in with a different kind of weight. I wasn't paranoid, I was prepared. I just hadn't realized how deep the script went. 2 hours later, Evan forwarded me another clip. This one came from a guest who had accidentally left their phone recording during kitchen chatter. The voice was unmistakable. My mother's again. "She's like a bank account that walks. You don't thank the ATM, you just use it. I didn't flinch this time. I didn't cry. I uploaded the audio to my private account. No caption, no explanation. Just her voice saying exactly what she believed. Within 10 minutes, it had been shared over 30 times. By the half-hour mark, it was pushing 87. Then the messages started coming in. Not public ones. Those were still polite. Still polished. But the private ones? Is this real? Did she actually say that? I'm so sorry, I didn't know. Some aunts texted, "You shouldn't post private things. This is still family." Others sent, "Are you okay?" followed by nothing else. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the final step before the floor gives way. And I had been standing on rotting boards for years. By the afternoon, Zinnia posted a status that was so vague it might have worked if you didn't know the context. Sometimes family is the biggest disappointment. Likes, hearts, sympathy rolled in like an old faucet left dripping. You deserve better. People don't understand what you've sacrificed. Proud of you for staying strong. Strong? She hadn't even lifted a finger to hold that family together. She just wore the crown someone else bought and posed for the photos. I read every comment, then went back and listened to the clip again. The line about the ATM. I didn't smile. I didn't shake. I simply said aloud, to no one, "Fine, let's play with receipts." And just as I closed the lid of my laptop, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. "We need to talk, please." As I watched, the contact name updated automatically from my synced address book. Mom. I woke to a phone vibrating against my nightstand, steady and relentless, like it had something urgent to say. The sun was barely up, but the damage was already well underway. 37 missed notifications. 9 voicemails. The family group chat had detonated overnight, each message clawing for control. Zinnia took down her post. "Mom says you twisted her words." "Aunt Cheryl said this isn't how we do things." And my favorite, "We shouldn't be airing laundry." I leaned back against my headboard and whispered, "You threw the laundry. I just stopped folding it." As I sipped lukewarm coffee, the irony wasn't lost on me. How fast the same people who called me dramatic now begged me to stop making them uncomfortable. Silence had served them for years. But now, my silence was the loudest thing they'd ever heard. By noon, Evan knocked at my door with a beat-up cardboard box in his arms. He looked tired, but resolved. "I found this in the stuff they donated to the charity center," he said. "Thought you'd want it." We set the box on my kitchen counter and started pulling things out. Old photos, yellowed programs from choir concerts, a few of Zinnia's childhood crafts Mom had kept. Because of course she did. Then I saw it. A photo from my 8th birthday party. A backyard picnic, balloons tied to plastic chairs, me in a paper crown holding a melting cupcake. But something had changed. My face had been crossed out in thick black marker. Not the whole photo, just me. "They started erasing me long before I fought back," I said, almost to myself. Evan didn't say anything. He didn't have to. I traced the lines across my own image, wondering how many times someone had to pretend you didn't matter before they truly believed it. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and handed me a USB drive. "There's something else," he said. "It came from one of the guests. They recorded a conversation between your mom and your aunt in the back room at the party. Didn't realize until they were cleaning out their phone." He inserted the drive into my laptop and pressed play. Isolda's voice came through, tired but cold. "Venna took everything from me, the attention, the praise. I gave birth to my replacement." It wasn't loud. It wasn't shouted. It was just stated. Like it had lived inside her for decades. I didn't cry, I didn't rage. I just sat there and let the truth settle like dust after a collapse. I wasn't just unloved, I was resented. The kind of resentment that didn't scream. It simmered. It rewrote. It rearranged. I opened the family group chat and typed one line. I didn't betray the family, I just stopped being their secret. No response. Not at first. Then Katie sent a single red heart. Then a cousin from Colorado, the quiet one who always stayed out of it, sent a thumbs up. A silent nod in a loud room. Evan glanced at me. Sometimes silence breaks them more than shouting ever could. Later that evening, as I poured myself another cup of coffee, a new message landed in my inbox. Unknown sender. No subject line. The body of the email was short. We need to meet. There's something you haven't seen yet. Attached was a single-page preview of a legal document. Amendment to Family Trust. Removal clause. The document arrived in a plain white envelope, the kind that looks official before you even touch it. No return address. Just my name printed neatly in the center, like whoever sent it wanted to make sure I couldn't pretend it wasn't meant for me. Inside was one page. Amendment to Family Trust. Removal clause. Filed 6 months prior. I read it twice before I caught the signature line. Zinnia, as the witness. My name wasn't just omitted. It had been erased, replaced with a generic clause. Any beneficiary demonstrating prolonged absence or lack of contribution may be excluded at the discretion of the trustees. They'd done it quietly, methodically, while smiling at me across holiday dinners, texting me, asking for help with rent, sending me heart emojis in group chats. They'd been cutting the cord behind the curtain, and they hadn't even bothered to tell me. They weren't just trying to hurt me emotionally, I muttered. They were laying the groundwork to erase me legally. The betrayal didn't sting the way I expected. It didn't ignite, it froze. The kind of cold you feel in your marrow when you realize your love language had been used as evidence against you. I closed the envelope, folded it in half, and slid it into my file drawer, next to tax documents, car registration, and the only birthday card my father had written in the last 10 years. An hour later, I got a security alert from my bank. Failed login attempt. Old credentials. The IP address flagged. Same city, same pattern. Tied to my father's name. I called the bank immediately, explained the situation. The banker on the line, a woman with a calm voice and a Midwestern lilt, paused when she saw the history. "This isn't the first attempt," she said gently. "There were 3 others in the last 60 days. All failed. Same origin." They never stopped trying. "They don't want distance," I said, mostly to myself. "They want control, without consent." I changed every password, canceled every link, closed every loophole. I requested 2-factor authentication on every account I still used. I even updated my digital will, just in case, because people like that don't stop when they lose access. They adapt. Later that afternoon, I logged into Zoom for a scheduled call with a legal advisor, someone Evan had recommended. She was sharp, clear-eyed, and didn't blink when I showed her the trust amendment. "It's valid," she confirmed, "but it was done unethically. No notice, no attempt to inform. You have standing." I shook my head. "I don't want it back." She raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" "I don't want the inheritance. I want my name off everything, every deed, every document, every shared financial tie." "You're sure?" "Dead sure." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Later that evening, Evan met me at a small cafe off Main Street. He brought a folder, handwritten letters, old messages from extended relatives, quiet words of support from people who didn't have the guts to say it publicly. I flipped through them one by one. "She's not wrong. We knew how they treated her. I just didn't want to get in the middle of it." I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel proud. I felt free. As we stood to leave, Evan's phone buzzed. He frowned and handed it to me. On the screen, a screenshot of a GoFundMe. Title, "Help Save Our Parents' Legacy." Description, "Our sister abandoned us. We're doing this alone now." Below it, a goal, $50,000. Donations already climbing. I stared at it, the words blurring slightly as the weight of it settled. They weren't trying to rebuild without me. They were cashing in on my absence. They say sympathy is the easiest currency to spend when the bill doesn't come to your table. I scrolled through the comments on the GoFundMe page. Some sweet, some cutting, most just noise. Help this beautiful couple rebuild after betrayal. No daughter should treat her parents this way. If you can't count on family, who can you count on? One comment simply read, Venna should be ashamed. Should I? They didn't know the years I paid rent for people who never said thank you. They didn't know the holidays I skipped because I was too busy covering everyone else's needs. They didn't see the therapy appointments I rescheduled or canceled because a phone call came in asking for just one more thing. They only ask for your side when the narrative stops working in their favor. And by then, it's not about truth. It's about cleanup. I closed the page and stared at my reflection in the laptop screen. The woman looking back at me wasn't angry. She was finished. The next few hours passed in stillness. I cleaned. Did dishes I didn't dirty. Folded towels that had already been folded. Anything to keep my hands moving while my mind slowed down. A yellow sticky note fluttered to the floor from my fridge door. In my handwriting, a quote I'd scribbled months earlier. Being useful isn't the same as being loved. I placed it back where it belonged. Centered, visible, unshakable. Later that afternoon, I sat down and thought through everything I had done. Willingly, quietly, consistently. Grocery runs, utility bills, signing leases, taking the blame when things didn't get done, bailing them out before they even asked. And for what? To stay in a photo they'd already cropped me out of? I didn't want an apology anymore. I wanted peace. My thumb hovered over the Facebook app. Then I pressed down and held until the icons shook. Delete. Next. The family group chat. Mute. Leave conversation. One by one, I untangled myself from the web. Every exit was a breath. That evening, Evan stopped by with paperwork in hand. It's official, he said. Your name's off the trust. No more ties. I didn't ask what it took. I didn't ask if it upset them. That was the old version of me. I lit a candle, not for mourning, but for closure. Not because they were gone, but because I was done holding on. Hours passed. I sat in the soft quiet of my apartment. No buzz, no calls, no need to explain anything. Then, a knock. I opened the door to find Katie standing there. Her eyes were red, but her spine was straight. They're calling everyone again, she said. This time it's worse. They're saying you hacked the account, that you planned all this. I didn't flinch. They can say what they want, I said, but they don't get to call me anymore. Katie stepped in, shut the door behind her, and for the first time in a long while, the silence in my home didn't feel like a void. It felt earned. The courthouse was quiet that morning, almost ceremonial in its stillness. No shouting attorneys, no long lines, just polished floors, faint echoes, and me walking in with documents tucked neatly into a leather folder. The clerk at the desk didn't ask questions. She just glanced at the paperwork, stamped each page with mechanical rhythm, and slid it back with a nod. Everything's been recorded, she said. You're officially disassociated from the trust. No further obligations or affiliations. I thanked her without smiling. Gratitude wasn't necessary. It was closure that mattered. As I stepped outside into the sunlight, I felt the weight shift, not gone, but moved from my chest to the ground behind me. I could walk forward now without dragging it. They created a legacy, I whispered, and I buried it. Later that afternoon, Evan and I sat across from one another at a cafe we both used to meet at in college, back when our biggest concern was whether we'd passed a stats final. He slid a folder across the table. Letters, he said. A few emails, some messages from extended family. Quiet support. The kind people give when it doesn't cost them anything. I thumbed through them. Short apologies, timid validations. I always knew something wasn't right. We saw how much you did. We just didn't know how bad it was. I hope you're okay. You deserve peace. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't need to. Peace doesn't always come wrapped in applause. Sometimes it's just silence without strings. That evening, with the sun melting into the edge of the horizon, I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and began drafting the final message. Not for them. For me. Let this stand as my goodbye, not because I'm bitter, but because I'm free. I attached the evidence, the bank statements, the lease agreements, the recorded audio of Isolde calling me a walking bank account, screenshots of Zinnia's GoFundMe with the words, "Our sister abandoned us," in bold beneath a photo of them smiling at a church potluck. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't even sign my name. I just hit post. By the next morning, it had been shared over 100 times. Within 48 hours, the GoFundMe disappeared. No explanation, no retraction, just gone. I packed up my apartment in 2 days. No big gestures, no loud exits. I had already left them. This was just the paperwork. The coast was quieter than I remembered from my childhood road trips. I pulled up to the small house I'd bought in secret months ago, one town over from anyone who knew my name. It wasn't glamorous. It didn't need to be. It was mine. As I stepped inside, the space greeted me with stillness and sunlight. Bare walls, open floors, clean slate. Peace doesn't always come from being understood. Sometimes it comes from finally refusing to be misunderstood. I put my keys down on the table and poured a glass of water. Just as I took a sip, a knock at the door. I opened it and found Katie standing there. Wind in her hair, tired eyes, but steady. "I filed too," she said. I blinked. "You're not alone anymore." I smiled, not wide, not performative, just enough. "I never was," I said. "I just forgot I could choose who stays."